All right, let's talk about securing your network in Azure. If you're working in the cloud, you already know this isn't just some nice-to-have feature. It is everything. So today, we're going to break down two of the most critical tools you've got: network security groups and Azure Firewall. We'll get into what they are, how they're different, and most importantly, the right way to use them together.
You know, the cloud is an incredibly powerful place, but all that power comes with a ton of responsibility. It's no joke. One single mistake, one forgotten rule, one port left open, that can be all it takes to create a hole that puts your entire application, maybe even your whole business, at risk. The stakes are just incredibly high.
So that leads to the real question for anyone in security, right? How do you contain the blast radius? I love this term from the security folks at WithSecure. It basically means, look, if an attacker does manage to get in, how much damage can they actually do? Your entire job is to make that potential impact zone as tiny and as walled off as possible. And the way we do that is with a strategy called layered defense, or you'll hear it called defense in depth. The idea isn't to find one single magic bullet tool that solves everything. Nah. It's about creating multiple overlapping layers of security. So if one layer fails, you've got another one right behind it ready to stop the threat.
That whole strategy, that layered defense, it all has to start somewhere. And that somewhere is the Azure Virtual Network, or VNet. Before we can even think about securing our apps and servers, they need their own private, isolated space to exist inside the giant Azure cloud. The VNet is that space. It's your first, most basic layer of security.
Section 2. Then, virtual networks. Think of this as your private real estate in the cloud. It's the foundation for everything else we're about to build on top of. Okay, so our first real layer of active defense inside that VNet is the Network Security Group, or NSG. Let's use an analogy. If the VNet is your office building, NSGs are like the security guards you post at the door of every single floor, controlling exactly who is allowed to come in and go out. So, what is an NSG, really? At its heart, it's a stateful firewall that filters packets. Now, there are two really important words in that definition: 5-tuple and stateful. 5-tuple sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just the 5 things the NSG looks at to make a choice. Where's the traffic from? Where's it going? What ports are involved? And what protocol is it using? Now, stateful, this is the magic part. It means if you create a rule to let traffic go out, the NSG is smart enough to automatically allow the response to come back in. You don't have to write a second rule for it, which is super helpful.
So how do you actually build one of these rules? Well, it's basically a simple recipe. Every rule needs a priority number, and the lower the number, the sooner it gets checked. Then you just fill in the blanks: the source, the destination, the protocol, which direction the traffic is going, the port number, and finally, the big decision: allow or deny. It's simple, but it gives you this really powerful way to control your traffic flow.
Okay, let's make this real. Look at this classic setup. We've got our web servers in one subnet and our database servers in another. Now, notice the really important part here. The NSG isn't attached to each server one by one. No, it's applied at the subnet level. It's the gatekeeper for that whole floor, basically. It's controlling traffic between the subnets. So it lets the web servers talk to the database, for example, but blocks everything else. This internal, or east-west, traffic is the perfect job for an NSG.
Now, let's add our next layer of defense. If NSGs are the guards on each floor controlling who moves around inside the building, then Azure Firewall, well, that's the main security desk in the lobby. It's your intelligent, centralized guard, screening everything and everyone that tries to enter or leave the entire building.
Azure Firewall is a whole different beast. It's a full-on firewall as a service, and the real power jump is right there in the definition. It works all the way up to layer 7, the application layer. What does that mean? It means it can make much smarter decisions. It can allow or block traffic based on a website's domain name, not just its IP address. And this is the real game changer. It has Microsoft's global threat intelligence baked right in. So it's automatically blocking traffic from known bad actors and malicious websites for you. So this is the most critical takeaway. You have to understand when to use which tool.
NSGs are free, they work at layer 4, and they are absolutely perfect for basic filtering between your subnets. That's what we call east-west traffic. Azure Firewall, on the other hand, is a paid, centralized service. It gives you that advanced layer 7 protection for traffic that's entering or leaving your entire network, what we call north-south traffic. They aren't competitors, they're designed to work together as a team. Okay, we get the theory. We have our two powerful tools. But how do we actually put them to work in the real world? Let's dive into some pro tips and the absolute best practices.
And that brings us to it. The big one. Probably the most common question that every single Azure admin runs into when they're starting out. Do you attach your NSG rules directly to the virtual machine's network card, or do you attach it to the whole subnet where the VM lives?
And honestly, the community has spoken, and the answer is loud and clear. I love how Reddit user Flappers87 puts it here. The best practice is to always put the NSG on the subnet, not the individual network card. He says never do it. And he's right. Trying to manage rules on every single VM is just a nightmare. It's a recipe for complexity, mistakes, and security holes.
So here's the playbook. This is the workflow you want to follow. First, you centralize. You apply one main NSG to your entire subnet. Second, you group your VMs using something called Application Security Groups, or ASGs. Just think of ASGs as simple tags, like web tier or data tier. And then finally, in your NSG rules, instead of using specific IP addresses, you just use that ASG tag as your target. So now when you add a new web server, what do? You just give it the web tier tag, and bam, it instantly inherits all the correct security rules. It's clean, it's scalable, and it is so much easier to manage.
And if we zoom out, you can really see how all these ideas come together in a big enterprise-level design. This is a reference architecture that shows everything segmented out. Different subscriptions, different VNets for dev, test, prod environments. The entire structure is built on that layered security model we've been talking about, all with the goal of containing that blast radius at every single level.
So let's boil this all down. What are the key things you've got to walk away with? First, security is all about layers, defense and depth. Second, your virtual network is the foundation for everything. Third, use NSGs on your subnets to control that internal east-west traffic. Fourth, use Azure Firewall at the edge for your external north-south traffic. And finally, to make your life sane, use application security groups to group your servers and target your rules.
We've covered the core concepts. We've laid out the professional playbook. The tools are right there, ready for you to use. So the only real question left is, how are you going to design your network's defense?